So it was double the flavor and double the fun for Pirate fans tonight here on this Friday night as the Pittsburgh Pirates split a doubleheader with the Cincinnati Reds. This is a Pirates edition here of Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I am your host, as always, Mike Asti, and for this edition of the program and for tonight's broadcast, a doubleheader. He gets 14 innings to talk about and to potentially complain about, as that's usually the theme here for most of these Pirate post-game shows, even though they did win one here. That's Kyle Dawson. He's done some play-by-play work throughout minor league baseball, as well as a former colleague of mine with the Trib and still doing some work in terms of high school play-by-play in the region. We'll let him talk more about what he's doing. But Kyle, thanks for joining me, man. I definitely appreciate it. And they managed to split, so it's not full-on complain fest here on this doubleheader. We were going to have you on a couple days ago. The game ended up being a dud. Alan and I just took care of business there and kind of finished things out from our show the previous night, but happy we're able to get this together and happy I got you for this doubleheader rather than that sleeper of a game.
Yeah, that was I ended up watching some of your guys' show the other night before I went to bed. So I was listening because I wanted to see what you guys were going to be talking about today when I came on, and I'm like, oh well, this game wasn't very good. I think they lost, what was it, like 6 or 8-2 or something like that.
Yeah,
and,
it was 8-2. It was rough. There was about a midnight broadcast. This happened a few different times with these shows. And yeah, there were some people watching, so I don't know. I feel sorry for the viewers that we do end up getting on those programs, but we did. It was one of those, you get one of those rainless rain delays that despite the world we're living in, 2020 has not been able to kill the rainless rain delay. It's taken everything else out.
See, I thought at the beginning of this whole thing, when everything went down, I'm like, okay, I'm a baseball guy, like through and through. If this is going to shut down baseball, I'm never going to complain about rain delays again once we get it back. And now the rain delays have happened, and I'm fed up with them already. So it didn't take long. But yeah, that was just a dud. I remember writing on I write for we're part of a podcast team with the Come On Network, and we do a commentary every night. I remember writing at the end of my little piece the other night when you guys did that show. I was supposed to be on Wednesday. I was like, there's just not much to talk about this game. It was kind of just like one of those games where nothing really bad happened, nothing great happened, and here we are. Well, besides the defense, but that's been an issue all year for the Pirates.
Yeah, well, I will say, not to brush our shoulders off too much, but we've found something to talk about in every one of these shows, and that has been tougher than you would imagine. And we've gone through them all with me hosting most of them. Again, Kyle Dawson there, play-by-play man for the Washington Wild Things, as well as Trib Live High School Sports Network. As I said, a former colleague of mine with the Trib. The Pirates do split these two games against Cincinnati here on this Friday night. They end up losing 4-2 to Cincinnati to start things and then winning in the second game against Cincinnati. This now will bring the Pirates to, I believe, 12-25, the Reds to 17-21, I believe.
22.
22, yeah, okay. 17-22, yeah. But the Pirates 12-25 after squeaking a victory there in that last one, and it was a 4-3 win where the Pirates end up having to play a close one. Trevor Bauer kind of blows it there at the end. I kind of was wondering how long they were going to keep him in that game, thinking maybe they would hook him earlier than they did. They let him linger around. It ended up being a game in which they would lose. And as I said, the Pirates get a victory, only the 12th win of the season, but able to get the split in this doubleheader. They still have two more with the Reds coming up, the White Sox, KC, 4 with the Cincinnati, and then a weird 5 with the Cardinals after that. But Kyle, speaking on some points from these two games, because they were similar in a way. You have, and this has been the theme, you have two starters that don't go beyond 4 innings. So once again, you're using a decent amount of your bullpen. Granted, it's 7 innings and not the 9. You do see Hayes getting to play out and playing to some success, as we saw that great debut he had. Not much after that, but then a solid doubleheader here against Cincinnati. Bell struggling, can't get on base. Once again, whiffing at every pitch, it seems. Now hitting below 200 again on the year. Polanco able to get on base a few different times. And Alford, who plays in game 2 and not game 1, able to drive a couple runs home, as he's also had kind of a bit of a surprise and a resurgence that's been a bit under the radar because of what Hayes has done. But he's had a nice little week and a half as well. What are your takeaways from these two double headers? Obviously, it doesn't change the season at all. We know that's not going anywhere. We know the trade deadline has passed. They can't change much, and the future of even who will be on this team is most likely in doubt. But any takeaways from these two against Cincinnati?
Yeah, I thought of a couple of things, and I thought you hit a couple of things that I was going to mention as well. I thought Key Brian Hayes was pretty good today. The 1-for-2 in game one, he had a couple hard hit balls. I'm a guy that follows the Baseball Savant feed pretty much every game I watch now. That's available to everybody. It's what Joe Block and those guys use for exit velocity and all that stuff. So I kind of look heavily into that. His second game was awesome. I mean, that triple was roped. It was over 100 mile an hour. I think it was something like 104, and ends up having 2 hits in that single is obviously a huge hit that sets up the Anthony Alford 2-run triple, and that was a big hit for the Pirates today. I mean, Trevor Bauer is really, really good. I mean, he's one of the best pitchers in the game right now, and to have him look a little bit human, I think they totaled 7 hard hit balls off him, which is usually a barrel or by StatCast feed 100 plus miles per hour and an exit velocity, but 7 hard hit balls off him. He did strike out 7. He's going to get his in that regard, but only one of the runs is earned. So that doesn't really kill Trevor Bauer. I mean, his ERA is sitting at 2.05 after this game, but he does take his 3rd loss. And I thought the Pirates battled. And I thought, frankly, in game 1, if Gregory Polanco's ball off the wall, the book roll double bounces a couple inches to the left or to the right, or maybe down or up the wall a little bit after it hopped off the ground, we would be talking about a 3-3 game at that point. And the whole entire complexion of the game 1 changes after that. So I thought they battled well today. And that's the one thing that I've wanted to see from this team really the entire season. Once it got really bad at that early stretch, first 10, 11, 12 games, I kind of just said, you know what? I want to see what they have for next year. And I know some of the guys on the fan are the same way with this in their post-game shows. I kind of just want to see what they have for next year, whether that's I wanted to see Key Brian Hayes a lot earlier than we did end up seeing him. I wanted to see a guy like Brian Reynolds bounce back. I needed to see Josh Bell bounce back, which he's got to be one of the worst players in baseball right now. I mean, he's nearing a -1 WAR this year and in like 40 games, and that's brutal. And I don't know how many people that watch the show here maybe are watching right now are WAR guys, but that's really bad. He's almost a full loss player this year. And he's defensively last year was the worst first baseman in baseball. That's continued this year. And offensively, he just hasn't done anything since maybe June of last year. The last couple of months, especially in 2019, were brutal. And he's just been abysmal. And I don't know if there's any other way around it. I don't think the Pirates have had a legitimate, consistent first baseman since Craig Wilson. And that's going back to the early 2000s. I just don't get it, man. I don't understand what's going on with him. But from a holistic standpoint today, the pitching was good. Stephen Brault could have been a little bit better. I want to see him be a little bit more aggressive in the strike zone and attacking hitters. He hasn't really done that well. His stuff plays. When he does do that, I just think he's trying to be a little bit too fine. He ends up throwing something like 96 pitches, 50-some strikes today, and it is what it is. But, hey, Dovidas Neverauskas looked like better than human today. He actually looked competent out there in the bullpen in game 2, obviously, after Cody Ponce. Besides his 2 bad pitches to the home runs, the bullpen was good in game 2. So I think that from a holistic standpoint, Mike, that the doubleheader was pretty good for them today. And that's not something we say very often with this team this year.
No, I think the doubleheader is a success. I mean, you have a Cincinnati team that more talented on offense, maybe thought to be doing more coming into the year. They've been a little bit of a disappointment. I didn't fully buy into the Reds coming into the season as many others did.
I had them to win the Central. So
okay, so you did. You did buy in, but regardless, they've been better than the Pirates, which isn't asking too much. Pirates certainly one of the worst teams in baseball all year, and having that distinction as we're speaking, but able to split. So that's a big deal. So I do think splitting a doubleheader even against Cincinnati and Trevor Bauer being the pitcher of loss in the game that you win, especially when you feel like you could have maybe won the other game earlier in the day. Yeah, it could have went better if they won both, but that's almost seemingly unrealistic for this Pirates team. So it almost really couldn't have went that much better for the Pirates through these 2 against Cincinnati. We do have a couple of chatters here. I'm talking about Alford a lot, so it looks like a lot of people like Alford so far. For sure. I mean, I think that he's been somebody that there hasn't been enough tape on. I mean, there just hasn't been enough to see. Talking about him with Toronto and less than 75 at-bats coming into these two here today of his career. So it's not like there's tons of tape to watch this guy and say who he really was. He wasn't able to get going until recently with the Pirates fully. It's still only a week and a half of success. It's nice to see young players, though, having success and having some fun, because that's one point, too, that I know the counter of Hayes being there is the service time. But there is something to be said that at least there's some excitement here for this team right now. And even though this season's not going to go anywhere, if he would have waited till next year, you'd have, because of COVID, unlike normal seasons, you know this from play-by-play with minor league baseball, it would have taken him almost a year and a half before he swung a bat in a real game. That would be a long time to wait. And it's actually bringing a lot of these players together in terms of since Hayes came up, and you saw players hugging him and slapping virtual high fives there in the dugout, or as close as you can get to slapping hands. This team has seemingly felt like they cared a little bit more. I don't know why I feel that way. It doesn't make sense for the standings. The veterans, it doesn't make any difference for them. But it has created a pep in the step of Polanco and a few others. It seems like they want to rejuvenate themselves and play well like Hayes is. It hasn't helped for others. But that's where we are. The Pirates 12-25. Again, speaking with Kyle Dawson, play-by-play man with the Washington Wild Things, as well as the Trib Live High School Sports Network, and across the Pittsburgh media scene, as he's an up-and-comer for sure. I definitely wanted to get him on one of these, and happy to do it here for this doubleheader, which does provide something to talk about here. So as we know, the Pirates win one of those two. And where did you fall, Kyle, in terms of the Hayes debate? You mentioned that you wanted to see him earlier. How much earlier did you want to see him? And do you understand at all the thinking of those who wanted to wash away this year and then have this where he's part of the team early next year? Because to their accord, this is irrelevant baseball, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't know where I fall exactly. So I was begging for
I'm asking the tough questions here.
Yeah, I mean, I was asking for him for a couple weeks before he ended up coming up. I didn't want to see JT Riddle play third base anymore. I didn't want to see Eric Gonzalez, though he's been pretty good this year. I don't want to see Eric Gonzalez at third base. Once I got to the point, like I mentioned earlier, where I wanted to see the future and what they've got, at that point, I wanted to keep Brian Hayes up here. I mean, he's a guy that's a three-time Gold Glove Award winner in the minor leagues, and that's not just AAA or whatever level he was at. They only give out one at every position in the minor league. So he was the best third baseman across all of minor league baseball for 3 consecutive seasons. And we know what we got with the glove coming up. But I wanted to see what the bat could do. I wanted to see if it could play at the big league level. And
he's faced some good
pitching.
Because he's taking quality pitches and having quality, even when he doesn't get hits, he's having quality at bats, going deep in counts. He's hitting like a veteran. It's only a week of baseball, of course, and it could easily change when pitchers learn him more. Yeah. But this has been a pretty great week. I think better than most expectations.
I don't know that I've been overly surprised. I know that the bat didn't play extremely well in the minors, but he's always had the kind of the mantra the same way that people talk about Brian Reynolds, and it's cold-blooded's not the right way to put it, but it's almost like they have a slow heartbeat. They don't get caught up in a deep count. They don't get caught up in the pressure situations. It kind of just seems like he goes out there, he's disciplined, he knows what he's doing, and he goes out there and plays. And I can appreciate that from a guy. I mean, he's not going to hit like a third baseman needs to in the major leagues. He's not going to have the pop that most third basemen do. But in the end, I think if he can put together solid at-bats, hit, I don't know, 250, 260, 270, somewhere in there, and put a little pop on and drive in some runs and play stellar defense, I think that's good enough. In terms of, I know people are arguing about the Super 2, and people in Pittsburgh wouldn't be arguing about Super 2 if it wasn't for them wasting years with Andrew McCutchen and everybody else that they wasted with the Super 2 eligibility. Was always a big debate with Tyler Glass now was one of the guys, Austin Meadows. Of course, they're in Tampa Bay now, but I don't really care for that. They still have to accumulate 6 years of service before they can become a free agent. It does hurt you a little bit in the arbitration process, but I don't know that Brian Hayes is the franchise corner piece that makes 10, 11, 12 million dollars in his third or fourth year of arbitration. I mean, we'll see. But I think it was good timing for him to pull up. They had to at some point see what he has in him. And if he's going to be a part of this club next year, I figured give him a little bit of a run right now, get his feet wet, and then let him go with a full year next year. So he kind of, I buy into, and I think they were talking to Jacob Stallings about this on TV the other day. I buy into him going into spring training knowing he has a place in the team rather than trying to fight for a spot. If he knows going in next year that, hey, if I play well enough, I'm the third baseman for good and I'm the everyday third baseman for this club. I like that a lot better than I like him trying to fight for a roster spot and teetering on the edge of being optioned down to AAA and being with the big league club.
It also provides him an experience of no pressure Major League Baseball, because the start of season or even September, if you're even near the race, there's pressure on. It may be hard for a kid that young coming out of the minors. These games don't matter. And unlike some veterans who need to worry about the next contract or even if they can stay on this team's going to clearly give him a chance next year and the year after that, even regardless of how he does the rest of this season. It pretty much is a wash away. And he's done nothing but increase his value. I'm really big on the fact that it would be a year and a half of him not swinging a legitimate bat. I feel like if there wasn't COVID-19, I could maybe see the argument more, but to have a guy that cold, it seems a bit odd. So I don't mind it as much too, but you do mention the arbitration, but it doesn't feel like him or even Brian Reynolds. And maybe that's because a part of this season so far in his slump early on, none of those guys scream the Andrew McCutchen role for the next era. I think that's the issue, which we've been harping on. Alan and I have been harping on most of these post-game shows. The issue is this team is not going to win. You knew they weren't going to win coming into the year. All those conversations of, they could squeak in because of COVID and the reduced schedule and expanded playoffs. That was never really going to be the case. But back in 2009, 2010, when people kind of like to compare to this year, you knew then that, okay, whenever this team wins, it's going to be led by Andrew McCutchen. I don't think we know that whenever this team wins, who's going to be the leader of this team. The idea maybe is Brian Reynolds. The idea could be Key Brian Hayes. Probably no longer Bell, but I don't know who the idea is that would be the guy, and I'm not necessarily sure if Ben Cherington knows himself. Mike Asti here speaking with Kyle Dawson, a play-by-play man with the Washington Wild Things, as well as the Trib Live High School Sports Network, and what else he's doing across his baseball coverage here in Western Pennsylvania. I'm Mike Asti again, Pittsburgh Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame here on PSL. The Pirates split 2 with the Reds, losing 4-2 and then winning 4-3, including a win over Trevor Bauer. Now, as we get towards this, and by the way, I'll put something out there, and Kyle, you're going to really enjoy this if you go back and watch. We're getting chat activity, but I'm going to put this out there because I never ignore the chat. I'm ignoring the chat tonight because I'm going to make this clear. And my main role here, I run the channel. I do a lot with the Now Network, and I definitely do cover the Steelers, and that's what's on the horizon. And I'm busy with Steelers coverage already, and that's my main responsibility here, despite doing a lot else. But I'm not going to respond to Steeler questions on this chat during the Pirates postgame show. So we're getting a lot of Steeler questions. I don't know if that's because of my Steelers coverage or just in general with the Pirates season completely going down the tubes, and the fact that we're not far from college football, and then, of course, the NFL season now. And by that point, the Pittsburgh fan who cares about more than just baseball probably will stop caring about the Pirates if they still are. But
they always do.
Yeah, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate the comments. I appreciate the engagement there, but I'm not going to respond to chat activity if you're asking me about what Chase Claypool's going to do or Deontay Johnson. We do have a video up there on PSL though for you, what he's been doing in practice, but I'm not going to talk about it here on this one. So, Kyle, we do a 3 up, 3 down segment. As you could imagine, it's been rough sledding at times throughout this season. I've tried to make a point not to repeat myself too much, but we do a 3 up, 3 down. Obviously, we have 2 games to choose from here. We can even go into the entirety of the season. I am going to get us started and say that one of my ups, and of course they did win one of these games, so the easy is a win and it's over Trevor Bauer. But one of my ups is also that these doubleheaders are 7 innings long. As much as I do not like there being a runner on second base in extras, I'm a fan of the DH. I definitely hope that stays. But I'm also big on these 7-inning doubleheaders, at least this season with how it's been for the Pirates. And I get the reasoning with COVID, but could you imagine 9 innings of a lot of these Pirate games, a lot of these doubleheaders? It gets through these quicker. I actually was watching the second one here at a restaurant and then having to rush out of there to even make it home for this because it was going much faster than normal. So I think 7-inning doubleheaders, especially this season as we're trying to wrap things up quicker than normal, I'm all about that. So that's an up for me.
Yeah, I don't mind it. We play 7-inning doubleheaders in the Frontier League. I hate doubleheaders with my entire life. I cannot stand them, anything about them.
Okay.
But I don't mind them in this situation. I would rather watch a 7-inning Major League Baseball doubleheader. I don't need to see the extra 2 innings, and I like what it does for the game at this level. I think the game is much better when it's just 7 innings, and you've even got two Major League caliber teams up there. If you want to call the Pirates a non-Major League caliber team right now, I mean, go ahead.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't mind it in the MLB as much as I hate it at our level of baseball and indie ball. But to your point too on the international tiebreaker rule, that's another one I can't stand, and I don't like it at the MLB level. I don't like it at our level in the Frontier League, but I can live with it, I guess, for a season as long as it doesn't stay around. That's about the only thing I'm not I'm very much so a baseball traditionalist on, is I cannot stand putting or changing the game and putting a runner on second base to start the inning. But
yeah,
I guess all's well that ends well, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not for that either. I mean, I get maybe the boredom, and it's harder for fans to watch, especially the casual fan, if they go 18 innings long. And we know the Pirates have done that in the past, and certainly those have even existed in the playoffs in the past. But I'm not about giving somebody a game. If you want to get the runner home, if you want to get on, you got to put the work in and do it. If that means
I don't need any more opportunity.
If that means we're playing until midnight, I've already been hosting post-game shows.
Yeah, I don't need any more opportunity to watch this coaching staff, this managerial staff, Derek Shelton call for bunts. I don't need any more opportunity to watch that. I'm very much Team Alan Saunders when it comes to the bunts. So
okay,
I don't need.
Yeah, we did talk about the Josh Bell's bunt attempt the other night. Alan definitely was big into that. So that was a rare up for Bell, just on the effort that he put forth. Any other ups for these games in particular? Anything you saw from obviously we could talk about Hayes again. We could talk certainly about Alford, but anything else in terms of an up?
Yeah, I think the bullpen in both games was really good. Dovidas Neverauskas, and then Tyler Bachelor in game one, and Sam Howard, Chris Stratton, Nick Turley, Richard Rodriguez, all really solid in game two. And again, Cody Ponce was an up for me. If he's only goes 4 innings, gives up 3 hits, but 2 home runs. I mean, the one was rocketed. The one just barely got over the right field wall. I was listening to the radio at the time, but I thought Joe Block did a good job of describing it. And just barely over the wall. And you take away those 2 pitches, and it's a really good day for Ponce too. So I mean, I'd say the bullpen's an up today. I thought everyone was pretty good from the pen.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And the bullpen this is weird to say, but the bullpen, it's almost been better than I think it's been given credit at times. The bullpen certainly has.
Yes.
Yeah, that I said at times. Yeah, that's the
because it's been brutal most of the year. I mean, I think the Angels are the only bullpen and pitching staff that is even really close to the Pirates in terms of a team ERA, and they suck out there in Los Angeles. So
and at least Pirate fans, you're not wasting a generational talent like Mike Trout. I mean, potentially the greatest player of all time is being wasted with the Angels, but we'll digress. Yeah, so the Pirates bullpen obviously has not been good most of the year. In fact, it's been one of the worst in baseball. But there has been weeks go by where this bullpen, while people are still complaining about the bullpen actually is putting up decent efforts and actually holding on in some of these games. And you can't expect much out of a bullpen that's been dealing with injuries, that has somebody in prison that was potentially supposed to still be on this bullpen if the years continued. And obviously, we know the issues with the starting rotation, all the injuries they had there, and Archer not being a part of this team when he was supposed to be. So it's been a makeshift group overall pitching wise. And there has been times the bullpen has been better than expected. So that makes sense as an up, certainly for these two. What are your downs, though? And I'm going to give you the easy fastball down the middle. Josh Bell certainly is a down.
Yeah,
the man's hitting below 200 still, but anything else?
He's been so bad. I just pulled up the StatCast numbers. He's bottom 8% in the league and weighted on base percentage or on base average. And people are going to say, well, what's WOBA? And I won't go into it, but he's basically he's bottom 8% there. Just take my word for it. Yeah. He doesn't hit a lot of barrels. He's like 8.4 barrel percentage right now. He hits the ball not hard 48% of the time or 58% of the time, as his exit velocity could be a little bit better. He is just, I don't know what's gotten into him. And it was the last 2 months in August and September last year too. And he's just been brutal this year. I don't know if it's something mechanically, because I thought he was good in spring training 2.0. He had the couple of home runs against Cleveland. He's swinging the bat all right. And then we get into the season, he has the 4 home runs. But other than that, it's been brutal. And 41 strikeouts and 136 plate appearances is not Josh Bell. He's whiffing way too much. Cole Tucker's the same way. Gregory Polanco, despite 3 2-hit games in a row, he's been brutal this year.
Right.
And I heard Alan talk about him the other day. It is almost annoying. I agree with Alan that he's had 3 2-hit games now in the last.
That was actually me. I actually was the one.
Okay.
No, I actually went in that direction because Alan brought up that Alan's counterpoint was that he wants him to do well. It's not annoying for him because of the money that's still on the hook for Polanco. But no, yeah, I think the fact that Polanco put these 3 games together right after the trade deadline almost actually would agitate me. I'd be actually a little mad if I was a manager.
Yeah, it's brutal. But to finish on Bell a little bit, I don't know what's gotten into him. Defensively, I expect him to be pathetic. I don't expect anything over at first base. I mean, like I said, I think his defensive WAR last year was like negative 1.8. You're a 2-loss player on defense. You shouldn't be on defense at all. I mean, this guy should be DHing, and I think that's what he's going to do. And I don't care how much they tell me he's working at first base and how many ground balls he's taken and how many times he's trying to throw to second base, because I'm not convinced he can do it successfully 5 out of 10 times. So I don't have the words for it anymore. Every time we have our website after the game, I just end up saying Josh Bell, one of the worst players in the league right now. I just don't know what to say about him anymore. You can give me numbers, you can feed me anything, and nothing is going to convince me that he's any part of the future of this team anymore. And that would have been crazy to say, a year and a couple months ago when he was bashing balls all over the yard and taking guys deep in Houston against a really good team. And I mean, the ridiculous stretch that he had in the first half. But hey, Jeff Locke was an all-star at one point, and he wasn't a very good player. So I don't know what's gotten into him. He's got to figure some things out. And if he's going to be a part of this team, frankly, I want to see something in the next 25 games or so, however many they have left, if he's going to be a part of this team in the future.
Yeah, and it was very likely that he wasn't going to be part of this team in the future, regardless of how he played this year, just contractually. But he's played so poorly that he has significantly hampered the rebuilding process, in where if you agreed with him that he wasn't going to be a part of the future, this could have been a season if it wasn't for the pandemic, where he was traded mid-season or at least traded in the off season, maybe depending on how this went. But now, not even in the off season, I can't see them moving him because or they're just going to get ripped off. His value is so incredibly low.
It's horrible. They missed their chance. They missed their chance. They should have done it last year.
Probably. Granted, you probably would have. I could see but I could see the argument with changing managers and the fact that you could argue that last year, if you were thinking coming into this year prior to the pandemic, okay, the real Josh Bell is not the first half of the season Josh Bell, but he's better. He's closer to that than he was the second half of the season guy. And we're going to say he can play out of it. Well, he's still slumped from then to now, but I think everybody, even the guy who was the most down on Bell, would have assumed he would have been better than this, because he certainly didn't come into the season one of the worst players in baseball, but is leaving it one of the worst players in baseball. And honestly, he maybe would have been the second worst player if it wasn't for the week that Polanco's having, because now Polanco is a little bit better than Josh Bell. And I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of Bell's value, that he's not going to be a defensive first baseman, but him sucking in this year, this way, is the worst case scenario for him individually and for this team rebuilding. Because if he would have been able to hit even halfway decent with the universal DH, that from all reports is probably a rule that's going to stay in effect permanently, that would have helped his value, because then defense wouldn't have mattered as much. National League teams could bring him in and be the permanent DH for the future. Not now. I don't know what the value could be. I don't know if somebody did call for him and they just said no because there was really no value, and they don't want to get ripped off for a guy like Bell. But universal DH has not made a difference for his value if he just can't hit in general. Any other downs, though, outside of, you did mention Ponce actually as being somewhat of an up for you, even though Brault doesn't go too far in the game earlier, loses going 4.2 in game one. any of your other, we have two more downs to get
I
through.
don't know from these two games. I think Brault's a down for me. Again,
Yeah.
he wasn't horrible by any stretch of the imagination. I'd just like to see him. This goes back to the White Sox start when he was walking the house. I just want to see him attack the zone a little bit more. I think his stuff will play, like I said earlier in the show here, but he just doesn't attack the zone. He's not aggressive enough for me. And listen, I'm just a Frontier League broadcaster. I'm no big league manager or a guy who's pitched at a high level, but I can look at a stat cast measure. I can look at his strike zones. I can look at his whiff percentage, and I can see that it's just not going for him right now. And if he attacks the zone, if he's a little bit more aggressive to hitters, I think he's going to be a little bit more successful. I think he's probably projects as a long man. I don't think he's a
Right.
starter in the MLB, but so he's probably a down for me, but not a huge down in this doubleheader. I don't know that there are any other ones, honestly, for a third one. I thought everyone was pretty good today. I mean, you could look at an O for day and call it a down, but
Okay.
at the same time, I'm not going to blame John Ryan Murphy for going 0 for 3 and a 189 hitter against one of the best in baseball and Trevor Bauer. So I won't complain about that, but
Right.
I don't know that there are 3 downs today, which is a surprise.
Yeah, that is very, very odd. Okay. I mean, yeah, to be fair, there probably are not that many downs. I mean, if you want to fit some downs in there, I mean, Newman, maybe 1 for 4. It's not like it's an offer. Some of those, the main hitters that you figured were going to contribute into coming into the season.
Yeah,
just
Newman
not.
was 1 for 8 on the day. He can be a down.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. I'll also have the down be the left field wall by the north side notch because that robbed Gregory Polanco of a 2-run triple. I think it would have been ended up being 3-3,
Yeah.
but so we'll blame the left field wall on that one.
Okay, the left field wall can definitely be a down here. Kyle Dawson, play-by-play broadcaster for the Washington Wild Things, as well as Trib Live High School Sports Network, and what else he's doing across the Pittsburgh media scene. Mike Asti here on the Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. The Pirates splitting a doubleheader against Cincinnati. The Reds now 17-22, Pirates 12-25, as they manage to get out of this doubleheader, get out of Friday night with a victory under their belt, even though it's only one of the two. Looking ahead here, Kyle, 2 more against the Reds, 2 against the White Sox, Kansas City. This has been a theme against Cincinnati. The 4 spot against the Reds is becoming a new norm for these two clubs. 5 against the Cardinals to finally try to make. Do you think they're going to make up those games? Finally try to make up those games from way back, as irrelevant as they still are. 4 against the Cubs, then that Cleveland series as we round out the bases to the month of September even. I want to kind of ask you this too, because I'll give you the respect. You're a keen baseball mind, and you've seen a lot of baseball, whether it be at the minor league level or now here, Major League Baseball, and just watching the Pirates. What are you personally watching for the rest of the year? I mean, obviously people are going to watch for Hayes and see how well he hits and how well he does both defensively and offensively. We're seeing that now a week or so in. Alford's a guy to keep an eye on, of course, as well. And Bell, just seemingly, if he can somehow turn something on, or at least he's basically become a poor man's Adam Dunn. And that's, almost even an insult to Adam Dunn to even throw the name in there. Adam Dunn could get on base. Adam Dunn certainly was better than people think. But when I say a poor man's, I do mean a poor man's, a much worse version, because he can't seemingly get on base right now. But how are you watching these games? What are you expecting, and what is keen eye looking for?
So I'm probably looking. I think the young guys obviously are a big part of this, whether that's keep Brian Hayes or Anthony Alford or whoever you want to throw in there as a young guy. I think Brian Reynolds still classifies as a young guy. He had a really rough start to the year here. I think the couple of days off, and listen, I've never had a kid. I don't know what that's
becoming
like
a father. Yes,
but to deal with that in the middle of a pandemic and his wife being pregnant while he's on the road and doing all this other stuff, I have to imagine from the human element of the game standpoint, and I've seen that rear its ugly head, and it's pretty head at some point during baseball, whether that's at the MLB level or at the level I'm calling. The human element's very much a factor, and I'd have to assume that played into Brian Reynolds and his struggles at the beginning of the year, and hopefully he turns it around a little bit. Like I said earlier, Josh Bell's got to get better, and from a pitching standpoint, I just want to see the bullpen and some of these younger guys continue to throw well. I want to see length out of starters. I don't think Trevor Williams can be a part of this team going forward if he can't give you length. I don't think that same thing for Steven Corbin Brault, all these guys, and we have to keep in mind too. And I don't think the Pirates fan base keeps this in mind, maybe as much as I do, or as much as maybe you guys do doing the show regularly, or people who cover the team. This team's missing like half the roster from injury or whatever it may be. That's something we have to keep in mind too. So I think in the end, I'm just looking for fundamental baseball. Go out there and compete. I don't want to see them win a lot, frankly. I want a chance at Rocker Kumar or Kumar Rock or whatever his name is down there at Vanderbilt. But I want a chance at him, and I don't want to see them win a lot, but I want to see them compete, and I want to see some length. And it's not that I don't think I'm a bad Pirate fan for not wanting to see them win. But I think I'm to the point where I just want to see some guys improve. I want to see kind of what Derek Shelton has been preaching all along is guys learn the game, guys learn their roles, and guys learn how to play at this level so that they can be a part of this team moving forward. You mentioned earlier, you were talking about the face of the franchise type role, and I don't think there is one on this current roster. Josh Bell certainly isn't it.
No.
There's no Andrew McCutchen on this team. I don't know that there's an Andrew McCutchen type guy in the organization right now. So maybe Nick Gonzalez, the first round pick from this year, could eventually kind of slide into that role. He's been a really good hitter. I don't know what he's doing in Altoona. I know Travis Swaggerty's a guy that I like a lot. He's in Altoona, and they've got some good pitching prospects. I mean, I think this team's probably 2 or 3 years away, but the system isn't as bad as people make it out to be. Now, there's no catching, but the system as a whole, I don't think is as bad as people make it out to be. There's some good pitchers. I thought Ben Cherington and his staff nailed the 5-round draft this year with going all with the left-handed pitchers, and then Gonzalez, who was awesome in his last 2 years of college baseball. So, I mean, we'll see. To answer the question, though, I just want to see fundamental baseball. I want to see the guys that I need to see. I don't want to see JT Riddle. I don't want to see Derek Holland. I want to see the guys that really have a shot to be a part of this team, even just next year. I want to see them a little bit more so we can see what they do at this level.
Yeah, so you're not asking for much.
No.
No, you're just looking to see fundamental baseball, which I think we can all agree, looking to see fundamental baseball. You're looking to see maybe a little less errors in these games, because even victories, they're throwing up that 1 error minimum in every one of these games. It feels like one of the worst defensive teams in all of baseball, which is one of the most disappointing parts of this season, because coming into the year, you would actually have thought that might have been a strength to this team, with the exception of Josh Bell. His defensive woes have not even really been an issue because he's been DHing most of the time. The rest of this team has just been awful defensively, and they threw that 3 spot up the other day. Again, 1 error in these games, despite the winning one of the 2. So they can't get out of a day without an error, it appears. So that would be nice to go through out of a day, maybe even a weekend without 1 error on the board. That would be positive. But yeah, fundamental baseball would be nice. Figuring out who could even be a Robin to somebody else's Batman in the future, if they ever would win 3-4 years from now, that would maybe be nice. Is that Brian Reynolds? Is that Hayes? Obviously, we need to see a lot more from Hayes, and something from Bell to at least maybe have him go into next year as not the worst player in baseball.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's
on a little bit of a high note.
I'm
not asking for a lot.
Yeah,
like home runs and
don't need to be an all-star.
Put some barrel on ball,
but just I think a little bit less in terms of being a K machine, getting on base a little bit more. If that means he got to try and throw some bunts again, I liked the bunt
the other day. Yeah, I had no problem with it, and I think I don't know if it was Bob Walker, John Wayner, one of the guys on the radio the other day was praising it. If they're going to shift you, beat it with a bunt. Maybe that gives him confidence. It clearly didn't work for him this week.
It did not. It did not. But yeah,
I can only preach so much about him.
Here we are. It did not really help much, but at least shows some effort there. So if you're not going to get on base, maybe now, this is weird to say. I normally would never say this. Maybe I'd rather you fail at getting on base with a bunt attempt than even whiffing away trying to hit a home run, because the home run's just not going to happen for a guy like Josh Bell. Kyle, I definitely appreciate the time here. Maybe we'll have to bring you on before this season finally closes, as we do have certainly more of these to get through, even though we do have football season on the horizon, as we've been saying recently, and certainly the chatters are already there. So the fan base is checked out, but at least Hayes being up has provided some level of excitement. And Tuesday night, it was weird to see the Steelers are yet in action. College football in the region yet to be in action. The Penguins out much earlier than many would have expected. For that one day before Pirate fans jumped off the bandwagon there, and it really ended up being done with interest, that one day in Key Brian Hayes' debut, people were tweeting, people were watching, and the ratings were up a little bit, that they did care about the Pirates for 24 hours at least. And he gave one hell of a debut. So that at least happened. So there is a highlight to this Pirates season. It's only maybe that one day, but it's something that many others maybe wouldn't have thought to be the case here. And as I said, they split these two with the Reds. They win one of the two. They have two more against Cincinnati left here throughout the weekend, two with the White Sox. And we know what happened the last time they played the White Sox. Against Kansas City, the Reds with 4 more, the Cardinals 5, the Cubs 4, and then the Cleveland Indians as they round things out. That's Kyle Dawson. You can hear him on the Trib Live High School Sports Network, calling high school sports in the region. You can also hear him on his personal podcast there, covering the baseball scene. You can hear him calling Washington Wild Things games and also in the Frontier League. And this has been another edition of the Pirates postgame show here, Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I'm your host here, Mike Asti, and for all of us throughout the Now Network and on Pittsburgh Sports Live, double the fun, not double the victories, but the Pirates at least got one. And hey, that's something.